The Avatar, default name Robin, is one of the main protagonists of Fire Emblem Awakening, and if they die, it is an instant game over. Their stats are... You're probably a little confused looking at this, right? Yeah, the Avatar's stats can vary wildly based on their asset and floor, so I can't really give one detailed chart of their stats. Instead, I'll fix this up a little bit later, but while you're looking at it now, I'll just explain what these stat sheets actually mean. In the middle, we have the character's growth rates. Now, these are all percentage chances of the character gaining a stat during a level up. So, if a character, let's say, has a 50% strength growth, there is a 50% chance that they'll gain 1 point in strength whenever they level up. Yes, if you're not familiar with Fire Emblem, stat growths are partly luck-based, but yeah, that's sort of part of the series that you have to live with. Fortunately, in this game, nearly everyone has amazing growth rates, so usually you shouldn't see too much RNG screwage in this game. On the right-hand side of the growth rates are modifiers. Now, these are a new feature in Fire Emblem Awakening, a feature that I am very glad they added. If you're a fan of previous Fire Emblem games, you might know that every class has its own maximum stats, which is the highest possible stat anyone in that class can get to. So, for example, in earlier games, generals had a stat cap of 30 in defense, for example. Caps in Awakening overall are much higher than in most other Fire Emblem games you're probably used to. But there's a change. This time, stat caps are not just determined by class. Every character in this game has a unique set of cap modifiers. These modifiers basically do exactly what they say. They add or subtract from their class's maximum stats, which means that two characters of the same class will not end up with the same stats. They will in fact be quite different. I really like this system because it adds a huge amount of originality to all the characters, and it means that no two characters are the same. It really emphasizes each character's individuality and their strengths, and I really wish that every future Fire Emblem game from now on carries this system over. Now, below this, we have the character's base stats. These are the stats that they'll have when you start. Now, some characters' base stats may vary based on the difficulty level that you're playing. Because I'm playing hard mode, I'll be showing hard mode base stats, but you can look up the rest on serenesforest.net. Now, hard mode differences won't actually come into play until a lot later, so kind of pointless to be explaining that now. Also note that if you're familiar with my new Mystery of the Emblem stat sheets, I am not showing level 2020 averages this time. The reason for that is, you generally don't want to stay in the same class all your levels, and characters' growth rates do change based on what class they're in. And now's a good time to explain what the different colours on the growth rates mean. The blue area on the chart, those are the characters' personal growth rates. Those are the growth rates that they'll always have regardless of what class they're in, and are generally an indication of their strengths. As you can see there, the Avatar's luck is quite naturally high, and the rest of their stats are pretty middle of the road, but their HP and resistance are a little low. Now, the orange part of the growth rates shows how much is contributed by their class. Every class adds growth rates on top of the character's base, and you add those two together, you get the character's final growth rates. And as you can see, the Tactician class grants a pretty average set of growths, really, decent all round. Also, I am only going to be showing growth rates for the character's base classes, as in the one they start in. If you reclass them, the growth rates will change quite drastically, and I simply do not have enough space or time to show them all. If you want to see a full list of every character in the game's growths, go check serenesforest.net. They have a very comprehensive list of every single set of growth rates for every single character in all of their classes. Now, the green part of the growth rates, this is unique to the Avatar. That's how much extra in this stat they could have, depending on what asset and floor you choose. So, let's talk about that now, finally. This handy chart right here will show you exactly what each asset or floor does for your avatar's stats. However, it might be a little difficult to read at first. Basically, picking a certain stat as an asset or floor will affect three things. It'll affect the avatar's base stats, it'll affect their growth rates, and it will affect their cap modifiers. And if it's an asset, they'll be increased, and if it's a floor, they'll be decreased. So, As you can see there, let's start with HP. So, let's say you pick HP as your asset. That will give the avatar +5 to base HP, +15 to HP growth, and +5 to defense and resistance growths. And to their caps, because there's no modifiers to the HP cap, everyone's HP always caps at 80. The caps will be +1 strength, +1 magic, +2 luck, +2 defense, and +1 resistance. Now, if those seem kind of high, remember this is before taking into account the floor. If you was to say pick HP as a floor, not asset, the avatar would have -5 in their HP base, -15 to HP growth, and -5 to defense and resistance growths, and -1 strength, -1 magic, -1 luck, -1 defense, and -1 resistance in their stat caps. So remember that your avatar always has to have a floor, so try to pick one that coincides with their asset and doesn't negate it too much. Now, really you can pick whatever you want for these, but for a new player, a few tips you want to bear in mind. By far, one of the most important stats in the game is speed, so it's highly recommended that you do not pick speed as a floor. Speed affects a lot of things. It affects evasion rates against enemy attacks, which is very important, because if you're not getting hit by enemies, then you have no risk of dying, which is a big deal in Fire Emblem. Speed also affects whether or not you can attack an enemy twice in one turn. You need to have 5 points higher than the enemy's speed in order to attack twice. And because of that, yes, speed is very, very important. If you have high speed, you're effectively doubling your damage output, so very, very good stat. The other stats that are vital are strength and magic. The avatar needs both of these, and they're one of the only characters in the game for which both these stats are actually relevant. Strength increases your damage with physical attacks, and magic increases your damage with magic attacks. Now, defense and resistance are essentially the same thing. Defense against physical attacks and defense against magical attacks. Now, in a lot of previous games, people have said that skill and resistance are generally the least important stats, and so they'd be better to pick as a floor. However, there's a bit of a problem here. Picking skill as a floor will lower your strength and defense as well, and that can be very bad, because those two are very vital stats. Resistance is quite possibly even worse, and seems like a trap to anyone who thinks that it's going to be the effective stat to pick as the floor. Picking resistance as a floor will lower magic and speed, and that's a big one. You do not want lowered speed, so as weird as it seems, picking resistance as a floor is actually maybe not that good an idea. The thing that most people tend to pick as a floor is luck. Now, picking luck as a floor will lower both strength and magic, so there are downsides to choosing it, and that's probably put there just to, really discourage you from just picking luck as a floor, because usually luck is one of the least important stats in Fire Emblem. And it's not that it's not a useful stat. Luck affects dodging as well, and it also affects, it lowers your enemy's critical chance as well. Both those are very good, but the thing is, luck really only makes a difference if you have a lot of it, or if you have very, very little of it. If the character's luck is middle of the road, it's not really going to do as much as stuff like speed and strength and defense will. So because of that, most people think that luck is generally the best stat to pick as a floor, because again, the avatar still has decent luck even with it as a floor, and again, like I said, luck really only makes a difference if you have very, very little, as in less than 10, or a lot, as in over 40. But you can pretty much pick whatever asset or floor you want. The avatar will always be an amazing character stat-wise regardless. So, for demonstration purposes, here's what Mary Sue's stats look like after picking magic as her asset and luck as her floor. As you can see, the avatar is pretty decent all round, but yes, picking my assets and floors a certain way, luck has gone down a little bit and the cap has really suffered, but other stats have improved, like, for example, magic is slightly higher. But overall, the avatar is a great all-rounder. They're pretty decent in just about everything, except maybe HP and resistance. Their resistance is, interestingly, kind of low for a magic user, so keep that in mind. But of course, their defense is a bit higher than you'd expect from a magic user, so that kind of balances out. The avatar is incredibly useful all-round though, because they are one of the few characters in the entire Fire Emblem series who is a hybrid physical/magical class and is actually good at both. Now, in games like Fire Emblem 4, you had Mage Knights who, sure, they could use swords and magic, but pretty much all of them were terrible with swords. Then you had Mist in Fire Emblem 9 and 10, Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, who was a healer who could also attack physically with swords and was terrible at using non-magic swords. The Avatar in this game, not like that at all. They are fantastically powerful with both physical and magical attacks. And because of that, they are extremely versatile and one of the best all-rounders in the team. Weirdly enough, despite being one of the main characters, you're not actually forced to use the Avatar in most chapters in the game. You can safely leave them behind, but if you do, you'll definitely be suffering. The Avatar is by far one of the most overpowered characters in the entire game, and if you're not using them, well, that's kind of stupid. But it's not actually the Avatar's stats that make them so overpowered. Oh no. Time to go to the next section of all my character bios. It's time to talk classes. Now, the reclassing system in this game has been vastly improved compared to Shadow Dragon and New Mystery of the Emblem. It no longer sucks all the individuality out of characters because usually a character will only have access to a small pool of classes. Except for the Avatar. The Avatar is the one exception. The Avatar can be whatever class they want, provided they use a second seal to change classes, and I'll be talking about second seals once we actually get to them in the playthrough, but basically, by using a second seal, the Avatar can change class to any class in the game, gender permitting. Some classes are exclusive to males, and some classes are exclusive to females, but pretty much, the Avatar has a bigger class pool than anyone else, and with a bigger class pool means a bigger skill pool. In this game, skills are determined by classes. Every class has skills they will learn when leveling up. Generally speaking, a base class will have 2 and the promoted class will have another 2. And usually, the base class learns their first skill at level 1 and their second at level 10, and the promoted class learns their first skill at level 5 and their second at level 15. That's the case for every class in the game, for the most part, every normal class in the game, and so I'm not going to explain those levels again. Basically though, because the Avatar can reclass to anything, they effectively get to pick and choose from any skill they want. And this makes them insanely useful. Any skill combo you can think of, you name it, the Avatar can do it. Vantage, Wrath, Vengeance, you got it. Well, I mean, male avatars have got it, but Life Taker, Gale Force, female avatars can do that. Counter Miracle, done. Purvey's, Aegis, and Renewal to make yourself completely invincible, there's an avatar for that. Lethality, yep. Swordbreaker, Axebreaker, Lancebreaker, Tonebreaker, Bowbreaker, they can do that. Every single rally skill, they can do that too. There is pretty much nothing the Avatar can't do, and that makes them, again, one of the most overpowered characters in the entire game. Now, as you can see, some skills are male exclusive and some skills are female exclusive, and I'm showing all the skills here. And here's the thing. As far as gender-exclusive skills go, females have it vastly better than males, mainly because of Gale Force. Gale Force is one of the most insanely useful skills in the entire game, and it is female-exclusive. Really, out of the male-exclusive skills, the best is probably Wrath, but even then, that doesn't even come close to Gale Force. And, I mean, Counter's good on enemies, but not so good on you, and Rally Strength, most of the others are really terrible, so male avatars don't really have all that much in the way of exclusive skills, but they do have more options when it comes to children than female avatars do, so it kind of balances out. One thing to remember about skills and gender exclusivity, now this is a mild spoiler, but here's the thing, okay? The Avatar is one of the few characters in the game who, regardless of gender, has a predetermined child that they will always have. Now, this child is pretty much guaranteed to be the most broken character in the entire game. But here's the thing. The child will always be the opposite gender of the Avatar. And because of that, you might want to make sure that your Avatar picks up a few gender-exclusive skills to pass down to their child, because that is the only way they'll be able to get them. Basically, children characters can inherit skills that are exclusive to gender-exclusive classes. That was a weird mouthful, but anyway. So, for example, a male child could inherit Gale Force, but only if their mother passes it down, because the male child has no access to the class that gives Gale Force. So, yeah, again, maybe try pick up some gender-exclusive skills, because they'll be useful for inheritance. However, the Avatar's massive repertoire of skills may seem like a massive amount of options. The thing is, even the skills they have in their base classes are some of the most useful in the entire game. So let's talk about those. The Avatar has access to an exclusive class called Tactician, which promotes to Grandmaster. Tacticians use both swords and magic, and like I said before, they're really good at both. But the thing that really makes Tacticians amazing is their skills. Specifically speaking, that first skill they ever learn in the Tactician class, which the Avatar will always start with, Veteran. This skill multiplies your experience points gained by 1.5 times while you're paired up with another unit. It might not sound like much to you, but this skill is hands down one of the most broken in the game. The main reason is, on the higher difficulties, your characters will pretty much be fighting in pairs nearly all the time, and that effectively means the Avatar gets a permanent 1.5 times multiplier on all the experience they gain. This is massive. Early on in the game, this is what makes the Avatar so good. They can completely power level the early game, being massively higher than everyone else. Think of it as in Pokemon if you got the experience share on, but just for the Avatar. They're going to be quite high level compared to everyone else, and because of that, they're going to be very, very, very strong, and this is nearly necessary to survive on the higher difficulties, especially Lunatic. In Lunatic, there are only two characters who really stand a chance early on. An overleveled Avatar, and someone else will be getting in Chapter 1. So yeah, Veteran, extremely useful, one of the best skills in the game. The next skill they learn is Solidarity. Solidarity gives critical and critical avoid plus 10 to nearby allies, as in adjacent allies, basically. This is pretty useful. It's not nearly as good as Veteran, but plus 10 critical is definitely a good thing, and plus 10 critical avoid is decent early on in the game when one critical tends to spell death. Later on you can gain much higher critical avoid through supports though, so it's not really all that useful, but plus 10% critical is still pretty nice. Upon promoting to Grandmaster, the Avatar's first learned skill is Ignis at level 5. This is one of the activation skills, or kind of like limit break skills, if you will, sort of super moves. This skill has a chance of activating every time you perform an attack. The chance is equal to your Avatar's skill stat, so that's why a skill can be pretty important. So for example, if they have a skill stat of 30, the skill has a 30% chance of activating. When it does activate, it'll add half of whatever stat you're not currently using to your weapon damage. Let me just explain. So basically, when you're attacking with magic, you'll normally use your magic stat and not your strength stat. But if Ignis activates, you will do damage based on not just your magic stat, but also half your strength stat plus your magic stat. So, effectively, you're increasing the damage you do by half of the non-dominant stat, and likewise for physical attacks, if Ignis activates, you'll add half your magic to the damage. Now, since, like I said before, the Avatar has excellent stats in both physical and magical attack, this is a very, very, very strong skill, and it'll enable the Avatar to do quite a lot of damage. Skill percent is actually quite high, considering that skill can often go up as high as 40 in this game, so you'll have a very high chance of pulling that off, and it's definitely a good useful skill to have. Only the Avatar and their children have access to this skill though, well, barring Spot Pass characters who have access to everything, but anyway. So, definitely a good skill to have on the Avatar and their entire family. The final skill the Avatar learns in the Grandmaster class is Rally Spectrum. This is one of the rally skills. The rally skills are activated based on a command, and when you activate them, all allies within 3 spaces around the character who used the rally skill will gain a certain amount of stat boosts. It's basically like a passive stat buff that activates yeah, for a whole bunch of allies near you. Rally Spectrum is special though. It increases all stats by 4. Yeah, you get to buff every single stat, besides movement and HP, on all allies within a 3-tile radius. That is a very, very, very useful buff to have. It's mainly useful combined with other rally skills though. The avatar can learn pretty much any rally skill they want, and when combined with other rally skills, this will give an even bigger boost. For example, if a male avatar combines it with rally strength, they'll get the +4 to all stats, but also +5 to strength, so +9 strength and +4 everything else. So you basically have to activate all your rally skills at once, and again, because of that, it's usually better if you have lots of rally skills, preferably all 5 of your skill slots filled with them. The problem with this is, this tactic is much better reserved for spot pass or guest avatars. Your actual main avatar is simply too valuable to be wasting their time rallying everyone. Using the rally command ends your turn, so it prevents you from attacking during the player phase, and because the avatar is so powerful, you kinda want them to be attacking. Again, rally skills are generally best on designated support units. Someone like a guest avatar or a spot pass character, who you can just safely stick a whole bunch of rally skills on without even worrying about them and just using them as pure support. You're not losing much by not having them fight. The avatar, again, I think they're a bit too valuable to be wasting their time rallying, so it's a good skill, but it's better on other characters. And with that, that's pretty much all I need to say about the avatar. I've covered class options, skills, stats, and the asset and floor. So one thing I want to do for every character in the game is voice actor trivia. And this is going to be a bit weird for the avatar, because the avatar actually has 3 voice options for both genders, so 6 total voices, plus 1 option that was removed from the English version of the game. Male voice 1, the default male avatar voice, is provided by David Vincent, who's mainly famous for playing Richard in Tales of Graces. David Vincent is also the voice actor for male Robin in his appearance in Super Smash Bros. The second male avatar voice is Brandon Carrer, and honestly, this guy is kind of unknown in the video game voice acting business. The only thing I can find him listed as is additional voices for Mass Effect 3. He seems to do more film and television than games, so I can't really find any roles to really show off here. But the third male avatar voice is Christopher Corey Smith, who he does quite a few voices in video games. He's played Emperor Martius Palmetia, better known as simply the Emperor, in Dissidia Final Fantasy, Molag Bal in The Elder Scrolls Skyrim, and forgive me if I'm not saying his name right, I don't have any experience with Skyrim at all, and, hilariously, Rufus in Street Fighter 4. As for the female avatar's voice options, 2 of them are provided by the same person, and that would be Michelle Ruff. Now, I know she does the third voice option because that definitely sounds like another one of her voices that I've heard, but I'm not sure which of the other options that she does. Anyway, Michelle Ruff has done quite a few roles. She was Crimson Viper in the Street Fighter series, but I mainly know her as Yukari Takeba from Persona 3, and if you have played that game, you'll definitely know that voice 3 is definitely her. As for the one other female voice, that's provided by Wendy Lee. Lately, Wendy Lee has appeared as Athena Sykes in Ace Attorney Dual Destinies, and Fuka Yamagishi in Persona 4 Arena and Persona Q, aka the non-annoying version of Fuka. She's also in pretty much every anime ever. Now, I mentioned that one option was taken out of the English version of the game, and since I didn't discuss that in the main video, I'm going to talk about that here. In the Japanese version, there was actually a silent voice option for the avatar. You had the option to make them a classic RPG/Pokemon style silent protagonist, who talks only in punctuation marks. This option was, like I said, removed from the English version of the game, probably because it actually required an entirely different script for the whole game. every single conversation involving the avatar, that includes all of their hundreds of support conversations, by the way, has to be completely rewritten to have the other characters speaking for them. And I really don't blame the English translators for saying, you know what, that's too much effort and no one's going to choose the silent protagonist option anyway. But in case you're curious, I want to show a brief video here of the silent protagonist option for the avatar. And this is actually not mine, because again, I don't own the Japanese version. This video is courtesy of Shadow of Chaos, a user on YouTube who does quite a lot of Fire Emblem Awakening related stuff. He says it's fine to use clips from his videos as long as you credit him, so I'm crediting him now. This is thanks to Shadow of Chaos, but in case you're curious...